What is wrong with me? Why can't I stop eating and be like everyone else?
Folobi pondered, hopeful that her problems will one day go away. The village of Nkama was small and quiet, surrounded by green hills where life moved at a slow and steady pace. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and secrets had a way of never staying hidden for long. But one secret had remained buried deep within the heart of one household, a secret that brought untold suffering to a young girl named Folobi. Folobi was a beautiful girl, but not in the way that people usually meant when they said beautiful. She was large, much larger than the other girls in the village, and that alone made her a target. The other girls, especially Muna and her cruel group of followers, never missed an opportunity to remind Folobi that she was different. They mocked her mercilessly, taunting her for her size, her appetite, and the way she struggled to fit into the narrow definitions of beauty that governed their world. "You're like a walking house," Muna would laugh, her voice full of spite, while the other girls giggled behind their hands. But what hurt Folobi the most wasn't just the words, it was the fact that she couldn't control the one thing that made her the object of their ridicule. She couldn't stop eating. Every day, the hunger gnawed at her insides, an insatiable beast that demanded to be fed no matter how much she consumed. She ate everything in sight, from fresh fruits to scraps of food left over by others. There was no satisfaction, no relief from the constant need to fill the emptiness inside her. Every night, Folobi would cry herself to sleep, her hands clutching her round stomach as if trying to suppress the hunger that would not leave her. She often wondered why she was this way, why no matter how much she wished to be thin and normal like the other girls, she only grew larger each day. Her stepmother, Ugochi, was no help. In fact, she made things worse. Ugochi was a hard, bitter woman who had never truly accepted Folobi after marrying her father. When Folobi's father died unexpectedly, Ugochi's treatment of her grew crueler by the day. She would laugh along with the other villagers, call Folobi names, and humiliate her in public whenever the opportunity arose. "Look at you, you lazy cow," Ugochi would sneer, tossing a broom at her feet. "Can't even sweep the floor without gasping for breath. Useless, just like your father was." Folobi would bite her lip, trying not to let the tears fall in front of Ugochi. She didn't understand why her stepmother hated her so much. What had she done to deserve such cruelty? But what Folobi didn't know, and what no one in the village knew, was that her stepmother had played a direct role in her suffering. Years ago, when Folobi had just turned 15, a seer had visited their home. The seer had told Ugochi something she never wanted to hear, that Folobi had a bright future ahead of her, that she was destined to marry a prince and one day become a queen. Ugochi, consumed by jealousy and bitterness, had vowed that such a future would never come to pass. In secret, Ugochi had gone to a woman skilled in dark magic. Together, they had cast a curse on Folobi, a curse that would make her crave food endlessly. She would never be able to stop eating, no matter how hard she tried, and as a result, she would grow larger and larger until no man, let alone a prince, would ever want to marry her. It was the perfect plan, Ugochi thought, but the sorceress had warned her of one thing. The curse could only be broken by true love. Ugochi had laughed at the idea. True love? No man will ever love a girl who eats like a pig and looks like a mountain. And so, for years, the curse had done its work. Folobi grew larger, her body expanding beyond her control, while the village girls mocked her and her stepmother took pleasure in her suffering. Ugochi believed that her plan had succeeded. Folobi would never marry, never be happy, and certainly never fulfill the prophecy of becoming a queen. One day, as Folobi sat outside her home, picking at the remains of the food she had been given, she heard footsteps approaching. She didn't bother looking up. It was probably just another villager passing by. Perhaps Muna, coming to bring her more spoiled food for her to eat. But then a voice, soft and unfamiliar, broke the silence. "Why are you crying?" Folobi startled and looked up. A young man stood before her, his clothes simple and worn from travel. His dark eyes were filled with kindness, and his smile was gentle. Folobi blinked, confused. No one ever asked her why she cried. No one ever seemed to care. "I'm not crying," she mumbled, quickly wiping her face with her sleeve. The young man knelt down beside her, undeterred. "You are. I heard you from down the road. What troubles you?" Folobi hesitated, unsure whether to speak. But there was something about this stranger that made her want to tell him everything. So she did. She told him about her stepmother's cruelty, the endless hunger that consumed her, the mockery she endured from the village girls, and the sadness that had become her constant companion. The young man listened intently, his expression softening with every word she spoke. "My name is Kizuna," he said, when she had finished. "I come from a village not far from here. I've been traveling and heard your cries. I wanted to help." Folobi looked at him, skepticism flickering in her eyes. "Help? How can you help me? No one can help me. I'm cursed to live like this forever." Izuna's gaze grew serious, but his voice remained calm. "Cursed? Perhaps not forever." From that day on, Izuna visited Folobi frequently. Each time he came, he brought her fresh food, bread still warm from the oven, ripe fruits, and wholesome meals that filled her belly with something more than just food. He brought her conversation too, stories of the world beyond the village, and with every visit, something in Folobi began to shift. She felt lighter, not just in body, but in spirit. Izuna treated her with kindness, and for the first time in her life, Folobi felt seen, not as an object of ridicule, but as a person. The villagers began to notice. They saw Izuna sitting with Folobi under the big tree by her home, laughing and talking. The cruel looks and whispers grew, but Izuna never let them affect him. He made it clear that anyone who mocked Folobi in his presence would have to answer to him. Muna, frustrated by her inability to hurt Folobi as she once had, tried to confront Izuna one day. "Why do you waste your time on her?" Muna sneered, her lips curled in disdain. "She's nothing. She'll never be anything but the village fool." Izuna looked at Muna with a cold stare, his usual warmth gone. "She's worth more than you'll ever know, Muna, and one day you'll see just how wrong you are." Muna flinched, taken aback by the firmness in his voice. She left in a tantrum, but the damage had already been done. Word spread through the village that Izuna was standing up for Folobi, and slowly, people began to treat her with more respect. Folobi herself was surprised by the change. She no longer felt invisible, no longer felt like a prisoner in her own body. And then something even more remarkable began to happen. As Izuna continued to visit her, bringing love and kindness with him, Folobi's appetite began to lessen. The hunger that had once controlled her life started to fade. She still ate, of course, but the desperate cravings were gone. Her body, once swollen and heavy with the weight of the curse, began to slim down. It wasn't immediate, but over time, Folobi became a shadow of her former self, still strong, still beautiful, but no longer burdened by the weight of her own flesh. Izuna watched the transformation with quiet awe. He had known from the beginning that Folobi was special, but now he saw that something deeper was at play. He knew the moment had come to reveal the truth to her. One evening, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the village, Izuna and Folobi sat beneath the old oak tree. The air was warm, and the scent of blooming flowers filled the air. Folobi had been laughing at a story Izuna had told her about his travels, but she stopped when she noticed a strange seriousness in his expression. "What is it?" she asked, her laughter fading. Izuna took a deep breath, his dark eyes locking onto hers. "Folobi, there's something I need to tell you, something I've kept hidden from you." Folobi's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" Izuna hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "I'm not just a traveler from a nearby village. I'm Izuna, the prince of this land." For a moment, Folobi stared at him, her mind struggling to process the words. A prince?" she stammered. "You're a prince?" Izuna nodded. "Yes, I've been traveling in disguise to see the lives of my people up close. That's how I found you." Folobi's heart raced, her mind swirling with confusion. "But why? Why would you... Why would a prince help someone like me?" Izuna smiled gently, reaching for her hand. "Because I saw you, Folobi. Not just the girl everyone else saw, but the real you. The girl with a kind heart, a brave soul, and a strength that no one else noticed. I didn't care about the curse or the weight you carried. I cared about you." Tears filled Folobi's eyes. She had never imagined that someone, let alone a prince, could see her in such a way. "But the curse," she whispered. "How could you love someone like me?" Izuna's smile grew even warmer. "It was love that broke the curse, Folobi. My love for you." Folobi's breath caught in her throat. The curse. It was true love that had broken it. She had heard the stories before, but never in her wildest dreams had she believed they could be about her. The revelation sent shockwaves through the village. Izuna, the prince of the land, had chosen Folobi, the girl who had once been the object of scorn and ridicule, as his future queen. The villagers, who had once mocked her, now looked at her with new eyes, their judgments replaced with awe. Ugochi, however, was not so easily swayed. She watched with growing fear as Folobi's transformation continued, her heart filled with dread as the pieces of her wicked plan began to unravel. The day came when Izuna made a public announcement in the village square, revealing his true identity and his intention to marry Folobi. Ugochi could no longer remain silent. One stormy night, she confronted Folobi in the privacy of their home. Her eyes were wild, and her voice shook with desperation. "You think you can just escape this, don't you?" she spat. "You think a prince's love can save you from the curse I laid on you?" Folobi stared at her stepmother in shock. You did this to me?" Ugochi's lips twisted into a bitter smile. "Of course I did. I couldn't stand to see you rise above your station, to become more than the miserable girl I wanted you to be. You were meant to suffer, to be trapped in that body forever." Tears filled Folobi's eyes, not from sadness, but from the realization of just how much hatred her stepmother had carried for her all these years. "Why, Ugochi, why would you do this to me?" "Because you were never meant to be happy," Ugochi shrieked. "But it doesn't matter now. You may have broken the curse, but no one will ever want you." Folobi's heart broke as she listened to her stepmother's venomous words, but she stood tall, no longer the weak, frightened girl she had once been. "I forgive you, Ugochi," she said softly. "Not for your sake, but for mine. I won't let your hatred poison me any longer." Ugochi was stunned into silence, her face pale as Folobi's words sunk in. The truth of her evil was laid bare for all to see, and there would be no more hiding. The following day, Prince Izuna led the village council in judgment. Ugochi was found guilty of her treachery and was banished from the village. Her reign of cruelty had finally come to an end, and peace settled over the land once more. Folobi and Prince Izuna were married soon after, their love a beacon of hope for the entire village. And though Folobi had once believed that no one could love her, she now stood by Prince Izuna's side as his queen, a symbol of strength, kindness, and the transformative power of love. Their story was one for the ages, told and retold by villagers for generations. It was not just a tale of curses and magic, but of resilience, forgiveness, and the kind of love that could heal even the deepest wounds. Folobi's journey had been long and difficult, but in the end, she found her happiness, and it was more beautiful than anything she had ever dreamed. Before you watch the next video, kindly subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Please click on the subscribe button and like this video. Be a part of my channel's growth by clicking on the next video on the screen and drop a comment to let me know what you think about the story. Thank you for watching. Much appreciation.